Leader 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Well, it's tough. You know, the NFL is built for parity and for close games.
Mike Danger.
You've got a head coach now who is coaching scared and cowardice. It was a gutless performance by the coach.
It's about us.
Gene Battaglia.
I think people need to get comfortable with the idea that McDermott is back next year.
I don't think McDermott is going anywhere, no matter how this season concludes.
It is the start of the bye week for the Bills. Monday Night Football.
Good snap, ball put down, kick is up, the kick is perfect. The kick is perfect, and the Bears have gone up 12-10.
For Alex Tuck with a shot, scores! Yes, he did! Alex Tuck!
I think I predicted a 5-1 Sabres win.
Patrick Kane from Detroit.
Seth Apper with the state of the team.
Let's go Amherst.
College football playoff rankings dropped tonight.
LeBron James suffered the most lopsided loss of his career last night, but did pass Kareem for the most minutes played ever.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
And we welcome you into Rochester's only daily sports talk show. Gene Battaglia with you. Dan DeLorean producing today. Where's the other guy, Mike Danger? If you were with us yesterday, he's got COVID, and we yesterday did it remotely back and forth, but today he's down and out. So we're wishing our buddy Danger a speedy recovery. And yeah, it is that time of year where people get sick, and certainly it's a different world we live in now as opposed to say 5 years ago. So we want Danger to recover and get back here as soon as possible. Our number 866-432-6866 Fan. It's the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub with a new location, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com. Before we tell you what's coming up on the show today, we welcome in Dan DeLorean. And I always love this day, Dan, because if you grew up in Rochester, if you've been here for a while, I like the first snowfall. I like how it kind of feels out there. Today it kind of feels right. It's just a psychological thing by the time we get to the month of March when I'm watching a little golf, I'm watching some spring training, I'm looking at other areas that are nice and sunny, and then I go outside. So for now, it's nice in the holiday spirit. How are you today? By the way, before we do that, let's go to your hot take. When was this, Dan?
Oh, yeah, okay. Here we go. You ready for this? We're gonna go back to last Monday when I was filling in and helping out with you. Yeah, I'm hoping that they come back next Monday. And sorry, Mike Danger, but I hope the Vikings destroy your Bears next Monday because they need to win more than your Bears do since they're tanking again. So.
Yeah, well, that
didn't work out.
I didn't stick with that. That was horrible. That was horrible. And that game last night, thankfully, the Sabres were on. The Sabres were playing well last night, and your Senators were, brawling and doing everything.
Not going to talk about that?
No, but look, the Viking, that was it. I guess the Dobbs story is over. Yeah, there was a lot of deflections or whatever, but my gosh, what was the final of that? 12-10? And people keep bringing this up to me, Dan, about the Buffalo Bills. And I'm thinking, no, that cannot be. And I guess we'll find out in 2 or 3 days if we're in the clear here. What am I talking about? Flexing. Not they're on the bye this week, and that's a protected game, Kansas City, on December 10th. I'm talking about the following week, the Cowboy game. That is unprotected. And on that Monday night, it's the Chiefs and the Patriots. They've never flexed a Sunday into a Monday, but they have that ability now to do that. And if ESPN really wants to stick it to Fox, yeah, I would take that Bills and Cowboy game. I hope for our sake that doesn't happen because I think we're all kind of tapped out, right, on night games. And I think that particularly this time of year, yeah, driving back from Buffalo to Rochester for a 4 o'clock game isn't fun. For a primetime game, really not fun. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but I just want to point that out that it's within the realm of possibility that we could have it flex. It's just kind of sitting out there. So, Dan, sorry about your Vikings.
It's okay.
They're terrible. There's a lot of bad. Yeah, they're good. I'm glad you didn't watch.
I didn't watch a second of it. I didn't watch any of the Sens game. I went to bed early last night because I said I'm not going to waste my time. I'd rather be rest than disappointed. So I said I'll just sleep on it. And I figured I woke up this morning. I just had a feeling they were going to lose, and they lost. So
that is a defeated man, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
The Dandalorian there. So here is what's on tap today. In the sports bar, it's brought to you by Three Heads Brewing. Loopy Oatmeal Red Ale. Yes, it's back. Enjoy this beautiful hoppy red ale with a hint of toasted oats. Get yours at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue today. Also, let's mention, we will be out once again, not this Friday, it's the bye week, before the Chiefs game. Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, is our SVP. We are going to have a lot of fun coming out on December 8th. So that is going to be our next show at Three Heads Brewing, the sports bar live on location. And what's fun about those, Dan, you know what button to hit.
so you're getting thirsty over here, right?
We can share a cold
Thank
one
you.
and maybe a win or two.
Yeah, we'll hang out a little bit afterward, and it is kind of the holiday season. I did don the Christmas hat last time, the stocking hat, and it was a cowboy hat. It gets my better judgment, but playing along for the show, I suppose. Here's what's brewing today in the sports bar. We'll talk to Amerks head coach Seth Appert Hey, the positive was you got the 2 wins you needed, in my opinion, last week. That's against the divisional foe, Laval. Both exciting, both in overtime. The second one from Friday night, on Black Friday, my gosh, you have Roseanne, overtime winner, 7,000 on a Friday night. That felt like old-time Rochester hockey, did it not? Well, Roseanne and Cooley both go up to the Sabres. We'll talk to Seth Appert and get his thoughts as the Amerks heading to Belleville. It's kind of overdue for a Belleville game. First time the Amerks have faced the Mini-Sens. That'll be coming up Friday and Saturday. Seth Appert in the 4 o'clock hour. Matt Perino for his normal Tuesday segment. He will be joining us here at 3:25. We got a lot to talk about. And as is the case, I feel like there's still a lot of meat on the bone talking about the Buffalo Bills. Yes, they're headed to the bye, but my gosh, where do you go from here? We'll talk to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. That's coming up at 3:25. We have shots. We have some NFL appetizers to go around. Which former Buffalo Bill, was nominated for the Pro Football Hall of Fame? And when I say this later on in the show, I don't know if you think of him as a Bill because it's from that drought era. It's kind of the tease there. We'll talk about who might be getting in to the Pro Football Hall of Fame as they have announced the semifinalists. We've got thoughts, and I'll drink to that. We got some fantasy advice today as well. And again, time for your calls on the Good Smoke Barbecue Pub and Wingman line at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. The table is set. I was talking today with Evan Shute over at Shute's Apple Mill, and he brought up a good point. And when we're talking about all the plays, right, for the Buffalo Bills, the decisions and how that loss unraveled. I mean, yes, we certainly can talk about the 20-second decision for Sean McDermott to kneel. But the Bills did win the coin toss, and they did have one play, one opportunity. And if 2 guys are on the same page, it's ball game, walk-off, and we're having a different conversation about the Buffalo Bills. Talking about that Allen to Gabe Davis play. And if you go online right now, holy moly, everybody's an expert on that play. Like they know exactly. No, the middle of the field, that's open. That's on Gabe Davis. No. Can't you read the corner and his leverage? Josh Allen should be able to read that. I don't know how Josh Allen can actually read that when the blitz is coming at that point. But what Evan kind of brought up is an interesting point. And of all people I'm going to invoke here, it's Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson. Go back to 13 seconds. And not 13 seconds, excuse me. I'm mixing all my games up. The 12 men on the field game. 12 men on the field game. Before we got the 12 men on the field, the Broncos actually had to get into field goal range. And Sean McDermott, if you recall that game, went with the all-out blitz, the jailbreak, the cover zero, whatever you want to call it. And the first time it worked. And it knocked him out of field goal range. And of the dumb McDermott decisions this year, to call that again, like you wouldn't learn from that again. It's almost like, let's put it this way. If they had a do-over, Davis and Allen, and if the Eagles actually ran the same play, I would think the Bills would score on that. It's not the way it worked out. It was third down. The Bills kicked the field goal. The point is, the Broncos are faced with the same thing, and Wilson knew what to do this time. But he couldn't read the leverage. He just knew Jerry Jeudy was going to be in the vicinity. And so what did he do? He threw a big old lollipop. Do you remember that? It wasn't like he was trying to make the pass. He's like, okay, you're one-on-one. I trust you. Go get it. And Taron Johnson commits the PI. So if all things are equal, and I haven't seen this point made online, I've read a lot, and maybe it's out there online. And if somebody did, tell me, and I'll give you credit. But the guy I'm giving credit to is Evan Shute today for this play. If Allen throws to the center of the field, and again, I think that was the play because there's no safety there. But if he throws it as a big old rainbow, well, what's the worst that can happen? Is it intercepted? Probably not. Probably not. I think Gabe Davis, give me that ball. Or maybe it's a PI call. Maybe it's incomplete. But to throw it on a line like you knew exactly that's where Gabe Davis was. We'll ask Matt Perino coming up shortly for his opinion on that play and other things to come out of this. We did have Joe Brady talking today on this, though. And
at the end of the day, if there is a miscommunication, and if it falls on me, right, as offensive coordinator, like there's nothing easy about it from a Josh Allen standpoint of it's a blitz zero situation, which you knew you kind of get where there's a lot of guys coming at you. You're going to have to drift and make a decision on the fly. And so we didn't connect on it. And Gabe's not at fault. Josh is not at fault. Like as offensive coordinator, I got to put the thumb at myself. And so what can I do to put him in a better position to have success next time that we get that opportunity, that we can have a walk off in there? So that's basically what it comes down to right now. It's just internal conversations about us just figuring that out, but more so me just pointing the thumb at myself and making sure that whatever the communication is, that we're all on the same page next time.
Wait, Joe Brady's only 30 years old. In that 30-second soundbite from the offensive coordinator all 2 weeks, he showed more leadership than Sean McDermott did after 13 seconds. Let's just put those together. I could pull out those. I guess we could dig it out. I don't want to, but Sean McDermott after the 13 seconds and he's doing the season-ending press conference, what did he say? That was an execution problem. Execution on the kick. Well, no kidding, it was an execution problem. Here's Joe Brady. Didn't go to the execution card. Just says, look, it's on me. I got to coach him better. To me, that I am now in the corner of Joe Brady on this. Like whatever happens this year with McDermott, that's also a byproduct of this. And I don't know Joe Brady's contract, but if you want to make that change, Joe Brady, if he does, he's only got the interim tag here. Is he showing enough? And it was somebody else brought up this point to me today. Like, if you do move on from McDermott, would Joe Brady be the next guy up? Would we be okay with that? These are questions. This is the other part I want to bring up because I think until we have something definitive with the Bills this year, we're going to be in Sean McDermott, will he, won't he? And I'm going to stand by my position that I don't like it. I'm not as angry about this as Mike Danger is, but when it comes to who should be the person to be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills next year, we could say it should be somebody other than Sean McDermott. I think it will be Sean McDermott because this is how the ownership has dealt with the Sabres in recent years. Brandon Beane has that relationship. And when you look at the numbers of Sean McDermott, you just look at the totality of it. We're looking at recent history here and how it's really been bad this year. McDermott, as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, has a .624 winning percentage. That's better than some Hall of Famers like Bill Cowher and Joe Gibbs and Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells only .569. Now, of course, I'm invoking men who have actually won championships. Doug Peterson just barely over 500. Again, but he won a championship. My point is that Sean McDermott will get another chance here. But if you got your way, he's going to get a chance from somewhere else because there will be a lot of finger waving at Buffalo. If the Bills decide to move on from Sean McDermott, you will have the NFL staunch old guard of the media just saying, no, you're Buffalo. You had a good coach. You let a good coach go. Shame on you. What about McDermott in Carolina? The Carolina audio. We should get to that later today. David Tepper just taking the podium, and as you would want every owner to. Wouldn't you love Terry Pegula to get up there and answer questions? And David Tepper getting up there and trying to reason why he thought the move was right to let go his, fourth coach here in 18 months? He owes now Frank Reich $30 million. He owes Matt Rule $40 million. People say it's a job you wouldn't want. Are you kidding me? I'd take that job. If I go in and I knew I had to deal with the biggest jerk of a boss of all time, but I knew, hey, if you're going to fire me, look at my contract. As long as the contract is ironclad. It wasn't always that way, Danny. I remember Al Davis didn't want to pay Mike Shanahan. I don't think he ever paid Mike Shanahan. I know that Ralph Wilson, for whatever reason, didn't pay Wade Phillips at the end. So, that does happen, but now I'm pretty sure that these coaches are smarter and they get lawyers and everything else. I just want to caution people that I think McDermott has enough goodwill here to get one more shot in Buffalo. It's not going to excite anybody. And I'm saying even if the bottom complete, well, maybe that's a different conversation. Like if they lose out. We haven't had that conversation. We look at the Chargers. We look at the Patriots. We laugh. But I don't know. What if? What if? Our phone number, 866-4FAN, 866-432-6. Dan DeLorean is screening him today. Giving me a break here. What's up, Danny?
We have Lou in Rochester wants to talk some Bills.
Lou, what's going on, Lou?
Hey, my favorite subject, McDermott. He's got a 624 winning percentage only because Allen is great. All right? Those other coaches would have had better percentages. I don't think he survives the way the Batavia Daily News columnist said yesterday, if they miss the playoffs or if they keep losing weird. I think Pegula is smart enough. He got rid of Rex Ryan in season, and if they have a few more defeats like yesterday and the Broncos, it's Joe Brady time. Brady has been kind of impressive with his command of this offense. And if he sneaks a win in Kansas City, which is entirely possible, then I'd rather keep Joe Brady as the interim head coach and get rid of McDermott. And McDermott is not getting any love anymore in the national media. They're all over him. They know he's a rigid, tone-deaf coward.
Well, Lou, I disagree with you on that. We're close to it. I think that Sean McDermott, if he was let go, we could have a friendly bet on this. He's going to get interviews. He would get, I would predict within 2 years, he would get another job in this league based on the rebuild and based on the fact that he can come in and say, I can build a program. Now, it would have to be the right fit, but I'm just saying which team right now is really down and out, really kind of sucks. Carolina. Wouldn't that be, Lou?
Yeah, let's trade him.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay. Yeah, let's pick up the phone. I mean, who makes that call? Terry Pegula? Does David Tepper give a call right now to Pegula? And how does that all kind of work out? And what would you ask for in return?
An 8th round draft choice.
An 8th round draft choice. Unfortunately, we don't have. Let's just say 7th, or maybe a pick swap. That seems. Lou, thank you for the call. Good way to start us off today. Yeah, what is the perception around the nation about the Bills? Like, people look at the Bills kind of like, oh, yeah, we I'm listening to, Perloff. I still call him McLovin. Like this morning, like, yeah, the Bills, they're your lovable little brother. Do outsiders look at the Bills like how we look at them objectively, or is it just It's cute. You're entertaining. Just keep it the same way. The Bills play entertaining games. They really do. That's why they get on prime time so much. The Bills-Eagles game, if we just took a step back, and maybe you're listening, you're not a Bills fan, name me a game this year in the NFL that was more entertaining than that. We can't look at it that way because we care about this Bills team, and we're like, oh my gosh, A, B, C, D, E. Like any one of these would have changed the outcome. But for a viewer at home, my gosh, you could go with a 13-second game. You could go with a Minnesota game. And I haven't heard a good one for this, but I'm going to throw this out there again because this is like of a bad stretch of Bills football here. If we are naming losses, like 12 men on the field. Okay, I know that game. The win game. Okay, I know that game. 13 seconds. Like we name our losses. I feel like what happened Sunday should have had a name to it, but we haven't come up with anything yet. Danger had cowardice. Which, it's a good way to kind of describe it. I'm just challenging everybody out there. Like the executive producer, she said Philly flop.
It's a good one.
The Philly flop is kind of... We'll ask Matt Perino that question. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, will be joining us shortly here in the Sports Bar. We'll also be talking to Amerks head coach Seth Appert in the 4 o'clock hour. More calls coming up next hour, but next, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. Bills fan, you want to stick around. My name is Gene Battaglia. Danger's out today. Dan DeLorean producing here on the Fan Rochester.
update.
Bills players and coaches, everybody taking a break. It is the bye week here in the month of December, actually, as the calendar will turn on Friday. Sean McDermott talking about what his message was to the team.
Listen, we're 6-6, and we know we'd rather have a better record than what we have, but we are who we are. And the encouraging thing is everything, all the goals that we set for ourselves are still within our reach.
Bills next play in December in Kansas City. We'll talk to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, next here in the Sports Bar. Buffalo Sabres played perhaps the best game of the year last night, winning in the Garden against the Rangers. Sabres next in action Thursday at St. Louis. Emirates head coach Seth Appert joins us next hour. Rochester at Belleville this weekend. Syracuse basketball at the Dome tonight, taking on LSU. Gene Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
That's good. I mean, it comes at a time where you don't like going on a bye on a loss. Having said that, our bye is as late as it's ever been in my career in the NFL. And so I think it's needed. Guys can get away a little bit, maybe break free of the snow that's outside of our windows here. And I think the coaches can get a little bit of rest as well and come back fresh for next week.
That is head coach Sean McDermott talking about that bye. And when we looked at the schedule, thinking, my gosh, what an advantage this would be for the Buffalo Bills. Now they really need a break. I guess maybe that is a good thing, just a mental break here as we welcome in Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, as he was in Philadelphia. And Matt, I don't know where we begin with this last particular loss, but we were kind of debating this yesterday and more today, and I've had a lot of different opinions on this one. But and Joe Brady came out today and said, "Hey, that's on me." Let's not talking about the Allen play to Davis in overtime. What did you see on that play, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's hard, right? It's easy, I guess, to just point the finger at one person, but a lot has to go right in that moment. And I think the way that Brady framed it, saying that putting them in a situation that maybe it's not that call or a different call or giving Josh Allen a more immediate answer where you don't need the play to develop as much. Maybe that's what he was implying, but, he took full ownership of it. And, I think it was interesting because we're at a place right now where sometimes it feels like that's not always the case with Sean. And I don't want to push aside the fact that he always says it starts with him, right? But it usually then devolves into the other player's fault. And I thought it was, refreshing to see Joe Brady just put the entire brunt of it on himself and doing a better job. And I followed up and I said, what about the accountability factor? How do you weigh that, knowing that your team went on the road in that weather and put up 34 points? And, the implication there that obviously that's usually enough to win a game. And he said it's not how many yards you gain or how good you play. You got to score more points, and they need to score more points. So I think that's important. I think that they've landed on something here with Brady. And I think with Sean, I don't think it's fair to downplay how good he has been as a defensive coordinator this year, with all those injuries and dealing with all that and the level at which they played, the way they pivoted off of Tremaine Edmonds into Terrell Bernard and the faith that he had in that young player and the way that has played out. The defensive line outside of Von Miller, who's still obviously trying to work his way back, has been really, really good and really strong. They missed Daquan Jones, but Ed Oliver has taken a step to a whole different stratosphere and has been one of the best interior players in the NFL. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. But sitting here at 6-6, as good as this team is, when they're having these moments late in games, you start to ask the question, is there too much on Sean's plate? And I know that, he wants to call that defense and he's done such a good job at it, but I really thought that they had a couple opportunities there late when Josh Allen was playing the way that he was to give him the ball, keep the ball in his hands in overtime, and then on the fourth down play, and then with 20 seconds left in a timeout, take three shots and try to get in field goal range and try to win it. I don't know. I wonder how much there was just too much on his plate in some of these big moments.
I want to go back to what you were saying at the beginning, and we were just talking about this before you came out, how Brady, hey, this is, that's my fault, didn't coach him up well enough. We put that, and we could dig up this audio, but the season-ending press conference 2 years ago, we're just stunned, numb, about 13 seconds. And what did McDermott say at that point? It was execution. You put those two next to one another, and McDermott here, the decision, could you see a scenario, Matt, where he comes back, but there's got to be some changes, and you're going to hire a real, defensive coordinator next year?
There's got to be a defensive coordinator next year, like 100%. I think the guy's already probably on a staff in Bobby Babich. I mean, this is a young, up-and-coming coach that knows his system, that's coaching this system for a while. Now, that might even upset some people. You might have to really rock the boat a little bit and shake things up, because John Butler's been there a while, Eric Washington's been there a while, and, I think Bobby Babich, when you talk to people around the league about, up-and-coming defensive coaches, I mean, he's at the top of the list. And he's learned at the table of Sean McDermott for all these years. So I think you really feel comfortable with that and handing that over to him. He's been through the Leslie Frazier's years. He's watched this whole season as Sean McDermott has ran that defense pretty well, especially considering. I mean, if you take the first 4 games, Gene, I mean, this was as good a defense in the league through the first 4 games of the season when they were whole. And so that's why I think, when Sean keeps going back to, the defense has played well. He's mentioned the injuries. I think that's all fair, but you don't necessarily get that out in year 7 when you've taken on the play calling role, and there's been some game management stuff that, the operation hasn't looked good. I mean, the Denver Broncos game, could you imagine if it comes down to the Bills and the Broncos for the 7th seed, and the Broncos win out? They're the hottest team in football right now. And I've messed with the playoff machine already, the ESPN playoff machine, which, unfortunately for Bills fans, that is going to be a daily exercise over the course of the next month and a half. But there's a scenario where the Bills and the Broncos are the 2 last teams in, and one of them gets out. And could you imagine if the Broncos, after 12 men on the field, get in over the Bills?
Gosh, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, our guest. Danger and I had this, this debate yesterday, and I think he's wrong on this one. He says the best pathway is actually still the division. I'm like, no, that feels like that's gone at this point. Which you played around with these machines. Which is the better of the 2 paths right now, Matt?
I mean, I still think that. Listen, I know that they all play each other, but there's a lot of lost potential in there for the Colts, the Texans, the Steelers, the Browns. I mean, if you wanted to sell me a case, any of those teams, the Broncos even, that they lose 5 games in a row to end the season, I would listen. And so, I don't think that you're necessarily worried. I think, the team got in with 9 wins last year. You probably got to get to 10 to be safe, and then you got to rely on some of the tiebreakers. But, yeah, I probably more with you, just because Miami's path over the next couple of weeks, they don't play a hard game again until 3 games left in the season. And we know what they've done against bad teams. So they might put the division out of reach by week 17, and they might be able to rest starters maybe for the last game against the Bills. So yeah, I don't know if the division is still in play. Now, am I a Miami believer? No. I don't think that they've done enough against good teams, but I just think that their schedule is so cream puff the rest of the way that they should be have enough buffer room by week 18.
Matt Perino Shout podcast, also an appearance on Saturday night, which you can check out. We'll get to that in a little bit. He and Ryan Talbot will be out once again. Matt, in our kind of show here, and it's true of many shows, it's turned into Fire the Coach Radio, honestly. In the last, and I want to just kind of have a smarter conversation about this, because yes, if this season goes completely south, that is something that I'm sure is going to be considered. Here's the question I don't know, and just seeing if you could answer, give us some insight, because it was posed to us. McDermott, and maybe it's more of a hockey thing. You hear this in hockey a lot. Oh, coach lost the locker room. Did Sean McDermott still have the locker room with everything that's kind of gone wrong this year, Matt?
Yes. And I think this is a group that knows more than anything that and they can get on a run. They've gone on runs in the past, and it's funny. Somebody sent me a text about this. There was like 4 or 5 games over the last couple of seasons where when the Bills lost in just dramatic. It was actually my brother. Give a shout out to Chris Perino. 2020 Cards Hail Murray, 2021 Bucks OT heartbreaker, the 2022 Vikings OT game, and then the Eagles OT game. So the last 3 before this one, the Bills went on winning streaks after that. Didn't lose another regular season game. So they know that potential is there. And I think, like, if you're on the offensive side of the Bills, despite how things have gone, as recently as the Eagles game, you do probably look over there and see what the defense has dealt with and how they've played pretty well for the most part this season, and probably gain a little confidence and now know that you can go on the road against one of the top teams in the league and, air it out, put up 34 points, have Josh Allen have one of those games and, pivot from there. But no, I don't know if he's necessarily lost the locker room at this point. I haven't observed that. It hasn't felt like that. But another loss or two, and we might be, I guess, ask me then. And we got to reignite this conversation.
Yeah, as Kansas City here in 2 weeks, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. Just kind of refresh everybody, like, nothing's going on, correct? The players are pretty much out of town this week, right, Matt?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some people doing some training stuff, but for the most part, yeah, people are out of town. We had the coordinators today. We'll probably get back to the regular scheduled program next Monday. So I'm doing mostly that, too, this week. Got to kind of put my head down and get away from it a little bit. Try to get as much rest as possible, and now it's that last little stretch run here.
Yeah, Matt, back to something positive here, and that is Joe Brady. Now that we're 2 games in, and you did it against the Jets, and we could say, that's a good defense. And you could say, well, the Eagles had secondary problems. You nearly pulled that off on the road. So what things have you noticed that Brady is doing different with this offense since he took over?
Number one, the shotgun draw runs are still there, which at times are mind-numbing. They believe in it. It is a holdover from Dorsey, and I do think that Dable did it as well. Maybe just not to the degree that we've seen over the last season and a half. But you saw in this last game more runs from under center. I thought that Josh was operating a little bit more under center, which I think just that balance and that those different looks are so critical. I saw somebody share the throw chart from Allen from this last game, and you just see the dots just all over the field. Like, they're not consistently going to the same place over and over again. They're mixing things up. They're doing different. They're attacking at different levels. Josh is getting really good protection, and I think that's been maybe one of the most under talked about parts of this season is just how good this offensive line has been for the most part, and how healthy they've stayed. I mean, if you're a Bills fan, you're knocking on wood every week because they've not missed a snap all season together, and outside of garbage time, and that's huge. I think this was a nice bounce-back game for Gabe Davis. I think they got him involved in the way that I think that he should be utilized, and he can be really good. Obviously, that play at the end leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, including Davis, including Allen, both of them taking ownership of it after the game. But I think Brady just brings an understanding of his role more so than maybe Dorsey did. And I don't know how fair that is to Dorsey because there was a lot going on. To take over the reins as a first-time play caller of this super freight train of an offense that had been just running like over defenses for 2 seasons for the most part, and coming off that heater that they were on in 2021. I mean, how do you live up to those expectations? And the problem for Dorsey is, we all know who he is as a guy. They love him in the building, but he's not that setting the tone personality-wise guy that Dable was. And that's what Joe Brady, to me, feels like he embodies. He brings an energy. Guys that have been around him, going back to Burrow, Chase, and Jefferson, have always talked about the juice that he brings in the locker room. And he's a younger guy. Dorsey's not old, but I just feel like Brady has his finger on the pulse of the team. He's so willing to adapt, it seems, early on here and really feed into what his guys want to do. And that, to me, was always a specialty of Brian Dable. And I don't know necessarily Dorsey didn't do that, but we didn't really hear a lot about it, especially when we talked to Josh Allen. Josh Allen always made it a point to come out and talk often about how much Dable gave him input into the offense. And I'm sure Allen had plenty of input with Dorsey. That was his guy. They were joined at the hip. He endorsed him. But it just never felt like they were, feeding into all the good stuff that Josh Allen, the easy stuff that he's leaned into in the past. And this last game, it was the quintessential, perfectly called Josh Allen game for how much you let him run, how much you asked him to throw, and the kinds of throws that he had to make. It just felt like there was a perfect feel to what the game needed and executing it in a smart manner. I think he's been good for the demeanor of Josh Allen, which is, to me, the most important thing now. We've learned that the highs and lows of Allen's game sometimes are connected to his headspace, and he's been in a really good headspace the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt, because if it's not for 59-yard field goal, if it's not for, hey, turn left, no, turn right, oh, no. We are having such a different conversation today. Hey, you knocked off Philadelphia, and hey, the stats say we can get in here. This league is just way too close for anybody that doesn't have a strong stomach.
Yeah, really, you're going to be hard-pressed not to have a conversation about how big of a Super Bowl contender they are if they win that game, right? On the road in Philly. They're a team that all the way up until the last game of the season, they could not make the playoffs. And to me, that is the toughest pill to swallow as a Bills fan, because it's such a winnable season in the AFC. The Miami Dolphins, is anybody scared of that team? They have not beat a single good team this season, and really going back to last season. So they're what they are. They might break through. They might finally figure it out. That's to be determined. Kansas City in 2 weeks, that is going to be a game, the Bills in Kansas City. With the Bills season on the line, their offense struggling, and I know they figured it out a bit against the Raiders, but it's the Raiders, and I don't even know if Max Crosby was 100% if he played. I got to go back and check that. But, there's not a lot of – Joe Burrow's out for the year. Lamar Jackson in December and January in his career has not been great. There's just not that many elite teams, if any, right now in the AFC outside of Kansas City, because they just get it by default because of all the things that they've done over the years, and that defense is still really good. So to me, it's just about getting in now. If you get in now, anything can happen. And I think getting in as a 6 or 7 seed might be a blessing in disguise for the Bills, because playing at home, that whole misnomer of owning One Bills Drive and Highmark Stadium, it's been proven wrong. We've seen it now. The playoffs this season with Denver, and it's not the home field advantage that I think that they thought they were getting when they drafted Josh Allen. So go on the road, be the underdog, lean into that whole shtick that Sean McDermott has embraced since he's been here.
Yeah, one more question, if we can go back to Brady for just a second, because he still has the interim tag. And again, it's only been 2 games, but I agree with you. It's been pretty positive so far. So what do we know, if anything, about his status beyond this year? Is he going, if you only have the interim tag, are you allowed to then, test your market value, Matt, as far as, Joe Brady's future with this team?
That's a great question. It's almost like you're sitting here in a spot at 6-6 coming off of a loss, where you can't really just, promote the guy coming off of a loss. But I would be really interested in them getting aggressive, or if they'd want to get aggressive, to try to make sure that he feels like, yeah, you're in the plans beyond this season. Because, when you stumble onto something like this, and maybe this is something that was building for a while, and I know Sean McDermott has been very, fair to Ken Dorsey in all of this, and wanting to make sure that, the proper respect is placed on his tenure. They did a lot of good things in his year and a half. It was still a top 7 offense in the league. It's not like, it's just, unfortunately, when you have a freak of nature quarterback like Josh Allen, you don't get the same kind of leash. But in Brady, they're going to have to make a decision and make sure that he feels like, pretty good about it. But I also think that if you're Joe Brady, I don't know if there's many spots around the league that you're looking to kind of jump ship to go into, only because we can already see the reverence that he has for Josh Allen. He's been talking about it ever since he was quarterbacks coach. I remember when I bumped into him at the bar at the first combine after he signed, and he couldn't just start talking like a little giddy kid on the first day of school talking about getting to work with Josh Allen, and it's come out in his press conferences as well. So I think that, yeah, do the Bills want to make sure that they show him the proper interest, of course, but I do think that he's invested in Allen in this offense.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, our guest, and Saturday night. If you live in a major metro, like a 70-minute drive is nothing. If you live in New York, going from Connecticut down to the city, Matt, you can go out to Buffalo coming up Saturday night, hang with you and Ryan. Just don't make the mistake I made the first time, punching it in. Okay, let's go to Wingnuts, and then, oh wait, it's not that location. It's inside of Froth. So tell everybody what time you guys are getting started Saturday night.
I felt so bad about that, buddy. And it's tough because so much has been happening with Wingnuts since they really came onto the scene here in recent years. It's this booming brand. They have several locations in town. One is a takeout only, and that's the one that you went to.
Yes.
And I'm glad
I think I'm the wrong spot here. And they're like, no, you want to go to Froth. Oh, okay. We got it. So.
Yeah, I'm glad that you didn't stay there and just order wings and then bounce and send me a text message from there or something. But, we're at 700 Military Road in North Buffalo, inside Froth Brewing Company, Saturday night. Yeah, make the drive down. Go, come to Buffalo for the weekend. It's going to be like a vent session, if you will. I know it's been a long, arduous season for Bills Mafia, dealing with the ups and downs, and there'll be a little positivity. I'm still bullish on this team. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I know that a lot of people in the media locally don't, and I think that that's fair. I mean, I've picked against them in a couple games here in recent weeks, and who knows? I might even pick against them in the Chiefs game. But when you have Josh Allen and you see what he could do in a game against the Super Bowl favorite right now, if I'm projecting this thing in the Eagles, I don't know. I think they could do enough to win it. So we'll talk a bunch about that. We'll have some great beers, some great wings, Bills talk. It's going to be great.
Man, I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, they don't flex that Cowboy game. I'm like, please no. I think we all like the primetime games, and I think people more often than not like their 1 o'clock Sunday, if not 4:25.
Hate to be the media guy complaining, but let's chill with the primetime games, okay? 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, as many as we could do the rest of the season. That'd be great.
Matt, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for the insight today, and we'll check you out Saturday.
All right, brother. Take care.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, a guest here in the sports bar. I went to that back in April, and Joe Buscaglia was out there. It was a pretty good time, and what they do is they'll have, fans come up and, talk on the mic and everything like that. And there were a couple people from Rochester that went on out. So we appreciate Matt and happy to plug his event with Ryan Talbot coming up on Saturday night. We have time for your calls now at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. But before we get to that, we have...
Ow! It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
So we'll talk to Amerks head coach Seth Appert next hour. They have just announced on loan to the Rochester Americans, Devin Levi. Yes. UPL is playing really well. And I feel like I'm like the number one UPL supporter here. People are talking, trade him. He's never going to be anything. He never got any time. He was hurt. How would you know? So here's UPL showing some promise. And today, Don Granato maybe tipped his hand saying, we're going to get UPL some more time. All right. Well, if Devin Levi's healthy, then how? Oh, you know what? It would make sense. Send him to the Amerks for a little bit. So we'll get Seth Appert's thoughts. I'm sure he's going to be in the lineup Friday night. Makes it a little more interesting in Belleville.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as we, again, have time for your calls. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Yeah, as I said, there's still plenty of meat on the bone in regards to what happened in Philadelphia. We just heard Matt Perino. And again, the simulator, or simulators, whatever one you want to pick. Ultimately, if the Bills run the table, and I hate that cliche, but if they did, again, I said 2 or 3. 2 or 3, meaning Philadelphia, Kansas City, and Dallas. But it would be really nice if we got the first one. Okay, they didn't. But if you get the next two, I think you're okay. We're having a different conversation as we're heading to the Christmas holiday. We have time for your calls on the other side. My name is Gene Battaglia, the Dandalorian on the board today, and this is the Fan Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams. And W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
Some breaking news concerning the Amerks as goaltender Devin Levi is coming down from Buffalo on loan. The Amerks next in action Friday at Belleville. We'll get the thoughts of Amerks head coach Seth Appert later this hour here in the Sports Bar. Buffalo Bills are off this week. The bye coming in the month of December. Head coach Sean McDermott says comes at a good time.
Get away, get a break, kind of it's a later bye than any of all of us are used to, and kind of get away from football a little bit, but take care of yourself so when you come back, you're ready to roll. And, obviously we have some adjustments we need to make.
Bills at 6-6 heading to the bye. Syracuse basketball tonight. The Orange at 4-2 on the season. This an interesting opponent. It's LSU in the ACC SEC Challenge. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Save half off to Adventure Calls Outfitters. Team Battaglia, the sports leader, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Well, it's tough. The NFL is built for parity and for close games.
Mike Danger.
You've got a head coach now who is coaching scared and cowardice. It was a gutless performance by the coach.
It's about us.
Gene Battaglia.
I think people need to get comfortable with the idea that McDermott is back next year.
I don't think McDermott is going anywhere, no matter how this season concludes.
It is the start of the bye week for the Bills.
Monday Night Football.
Good snap. Ball put down. Kick is up. The kick is perfect. The kick is perfect. And the Bears have gone up 12-10.
For Alex Tuck with a shot, scores! Yes, he did! Alex Tuck!
I think I predicted a 5-1 Sabres win.
Patrick Kane from Detroit.
Seth Appert with the state of the team.
Let's go Amerks.
College football playoff rankings dropped tonight.
LeBron James suffered the most lopsided loss of his career last night, but did pass Kareem for the most minutes played ever.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Who's in hot water here in the Sports Bar is presented by Ace Swim and Leisure, and I'm gonna nominate the Carolina Panthers organization. I mean, Frank Reich, they did you a favor. You're getting paid $30 million to walk away. Matt Rule getting paid $40 million to walk away. Now, before anybody thinks, well, Frank Reich, he'd be great in Buffalo as offensive coordinator or next head coach. Frank Reich has said maybe this was it for me in the NFL. And maybe he takes a little time off. Maybe he recharges, but he's set for life. Frank, just go out, enjoy. Maybe you become a college coach, but this is the story from the Carolina press conference today. I think this is actually kind of funny, is that every town has one of these guys, like somebody who fancies themselves as being, I'm the columnist who's going to hold your feet to the fire representing the fans. And I think every town needs one of these. Buffalo used to be Jerry Sullivan until he said something unfortunate, and that was the end of it. Maybe now that Tim Graham has that title, I'd say that would be the guy in Buffalo. If there's an issue here in Rochester, it would be Sal Mayorana. In Charlotte, it's Scott Fowler. He writes for the Charlotte Observer, and he said Monday, in his column, the problem here isn't Frank Reich. The owner needs to fire himself, David Tepper. David Tepper, kind of a hothead. David Tepper is now kind of filling that void at Daniel Snyder. I don't think there's anything criminal or creepy, but David Tepper just seems like a world-class a-hole. There's no way around it. And if you need an example of this, here was the one from today. And the one hand, I guess you give Tepper credit for getting behind the podium and answering questions, because that's what you would want any owner to do. However, if you do it in this format of a press conference, that means you answer the questions, especially the guy in the front row. If you want to cherry pick who asks you the questions, well, then have the team in-house reporter sit down with you. Choose somebody else. But if you're going to do it in the press conference situation, you got to answer everybody. Those are the rules. And here was that guy who wrote that column from the Charlotte Observer, Scott Fowler, and he keeps putting his hand up. He is sitting front and center, and he keeps putting his hand up for a question, and Tepper won't call on him. and keeps putting his hand up. It becomes comical to the point. I'm going to date myself, Danny. You don't know this, but welcome back, Carter, the horse shack. Oh, Mr. Carter. He's putting his hand up, and the owner won't answer the question. So you know how you answer your critics, but head on. It's not hiding from them, not answering them like out of spite. Now you're giving more power to Scout Fowler, but that's David Tepper has no idea when it comes to PR, and I'm sure he hires people that to advise him on PR. He's just not listening to it. Like, you answer the question and move on, and you don't empower the journalist or now he's given Fowler all sorts of power. That's actually better for Fowler and his brand that I'm the critic that he won't answer to. See how good hot water can be at Ace Swim and Leisure. They've been serving Rochester area families since 1962. Isn't very often something comes along as cool and different as the all-new jacuzzi swim spa. It's the right price. It's the right combo that gives you the pro-grade water workout and therapeutic water massage. See the all-new jacuzzi swim spa for yourself at Ace Swim and Leisure's Chilai Avenue store today or aceswim.com. The Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line is 866-4FAN. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub at the new location, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, and goodsmokebarbecue.com. As our next caller, because we're on the Odyssey app and listening. And Chris in South Central Kentucky joining us. Chris, how are you?
Doing all right, but I'm actually watching you on YouTube.
Oh, all right. I got the wrong platform today. And we're on Twitch today, too. We're doing everything. So, yeah, sorry. We should put up a little logo of you when you call in. Maybe we'll get Dan Delorean to work on that. So.
Well, my wife sometimes listens to the show, and she wonders why you don't have bluegrass music playing for me as my walk-up music.
Well, see, then we're going to go into we do it for you, then we got it. Well, we did it for John, I guess. But Chris, what's on your mind today?
Well, all this talk about Sean McDermott, I think my opinion on him has changed about 5 or 6 times in the last 48 hours. And when I look back on his head coaching tenure in Buffalo, the majority of the Bills' losses have come down to either the Bills shoot themselves in the foot or he's just getting out-coached. And it comes down to him saying, it's all about accountability. But really, who is Sean McDermott accountable to in the Bills organization? I can't say it's Brandon Beane because without McDermott, I don't think Beane is there. And I don't really think it's Terry Pagula either because he seems to be more emotionally invested in the Sabres, and he doesn't quite come across as football guy. So what if Pagula were to say, hey, I am bringing in somebody not to threaten you as the head coach, but to be kind of a football guy that could be a second set of eyes who could maybe help you see some things that you might be overlooking. You're just too close to the situation. Sometimes, when we have a problem that we're trying to figure out, the obvious solution is right in front of us, but we can't focus on it for whatever reason. If Pagula says, I'm bringing in, whoever this guy is who knows football, who can talk, he's not threatening you as the coach, but he's going to be here to help hold you accountable. I don't know if that maybe helps Sean McDermott hold himself accountable.
Interesting theory. I want to push back on one thing you said, Chris. I think Terry Pagula is invested here. He's the guy. Maybe this has changed over the last few years, but he's the guy that would sit and watch film with Rex Ryan, would have the weekly calls. And I think now that you have a new PR department, now that you have a new general manager, and you just kind of the realization we're not going to put Terry out there at all. You don't have to worry about this. But I can guarantee that behind the scenes, Terry Pagula is having multiple conversations per week with his GM and his head coach. And we have talked to people on the show here that, Leslie Frazier thing, what happened there? It's a mystery, right? We don't know. Was it Leslie actually really deciding, waking up one day, I'm not ready, cut out for this anymore. Sorry, Sean. Or was it a decision from somewhere else? And I think a lot of people just kind of jumped the gun and said, hey, that was the Cincinnati loss. That's Sean McDermott letting him go. And there's other people that have kind of said, nah, you make a decision like that, that's coming from the owner. And we talked to Dan Leberfeld, Jets Confidential, and we thought it was Sean's decision. It might have been, but he doesn't make a decision like that without checking off, with the owner first. It's just that we don't hear from Terry Pegula. And on a day where we hear from the owner, we really don't want to hear from that jerk in Carolina. It's been 2019 since we've had Terry Pegula talk to reporters, and I think that would be kind of refreshing. And maybe if we get to the end of the season, Chris, if the season goes as south as we fear, meaning no playoffs, then I sure as heck want to hear from Terry Pegula.
Yeah. I just, I'm looking at it from, almost 1,000 miles away, and it just never quite seemed like he was as invested in the Bills. And I'm not saying that he's not invested, but, when he would come out and meet Gilbert Perreault and get all teary-eyed, you never quite saw that same thing with the Bills. But anyway, it just seems like maybe if he were to bring in a guy that says, this guy's only job is to help you maybe fill in some of the minute details, and he answers directly to me. He doesn't answer to you. He doesn't answer to Beam. He answers directly to me. Maybe that's all it takes.
Chris, appreciate the take and the call. Be well. And it opens up a chance for you to give us a call at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. The idea that you would hire a right-hand man. Chris, I think it's as simple as this. Sean McDermott needs to hire a defensive coordinator. We have a pattern with this team. People will point out, oh my gosh, Josh Allen, he hasn't won an overtime game. That's also Sean McDermott's stat. It is. And I think McDermott wears that more than Josh Allen, because our wins and losses a quarterback stat, or is that more of a head coach stat? I would say it's more of a head coach stat than anything else. So to me, hiring like a bench coach, in baseball you have a bench manager. I never understood that. Why? What do you need the bench manager for? Well, that's now a new thing in baseball, whatever. To hire the bench manager I think you just let's start here. Let's start with a defensive coordinator. We were just joined by Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. And I kind of agree with him. What do the Bills do? They don't go from outside. They promote from within. And Bobby Babich may be that guy. And the reason why we haven't had McDermott say, you know what, you call the plays, because who they've been grooming all along, it hasn't been Bobby Babich, it's been Washington, the defensive line coach. Washington's been the guy who actually ran a training camp practice while Sean McDermott went to, go watch his son play Little League one day, which is fine. But do you really want to start the in-office politics there of oh, wait, how did he get the coordinator position? Why is he getting the first shot at this? So we can kind of go in reverse, too much on the plate. That was a fear going into the season, and I think it's kind of valid. If Sean McDermott is clearly focused on calling the plays on defense at the end of the Denver game, well, as a head coach, is he thinking two steps ahead, thinking, oh, wait a second, they're going to have to run on to they have no timeouts. They're going to have to do this all in one. And then you wouldn't have had 11 men you would have had 11 men on the field. Would he have clearly thought at the end of the Philadelphia game, let's take a shot here? It's almost like, okay, your brain was fried at that point. Let's kind of reset and get ready for overtime. No, you got time up on the clock. So I think Sean McDermott, as the CEO type of the Buffalo Bills, is what we need to get back to. I think this is the bare minimum. Whatever the outcome is this year, maybe the Buffalo Bills make it to the playoffs and they go on the run. Well, if that happens, I'm on the record saying if Sean McDermott's back next year, please let's revamp the coaching staff here on that side of the ball. My buddy Kevin Roche, do RIT hockey with him. He's a Doll fan. I love how Miami fans we're Bills Mafia. I'm sure gets mocked from the outside, oh, that's cheesy. Doll fans, we're kind of. But this is kind of like how you are as a Viking fan. You can identify with this. This is Kevin writing in. The Dolphins are going to lose to Dallas and Baltimore, and the Bills are going to win their next 4 games. Week 17 in Miami will be for the division. It's actually Week 18, and it's going to be flexed to the night. I have this feeling it's coming. Well, yeah, that's the gap right there. Baltimore and Dallas, and the Bills would have to win in Kansas City and home against Dallas. Danger says that's the better path for the Buffalo Bills. I kind of like Matt Perino's take that the wild card, look, are the Colts really a team? Are the Texans really a team? Even Pittsburgh, there's a lot of losses there in that schmounzel of a wild card mix. The fear, though, is could you imagine if it ends up being Denver at the end? What would happen? I mean, our heads would kind of explode, right? Like, oh, yeah, the Bills didn't get in because the head-to-head with Denver, sorry. 866-4FAN, 866-4326 is our number here on the Sports Bar. What else do we have kind of working here today? This Corey Perry story, Dan, did you see this here? So the Blackhawks today releasing Corey Perry, which it was mysterious how he was away from the team. And like whenever you hear, it's none of your business, really, it's like, okay, then maybe that's personal reasons here, but the team putting out a statement today basically saying it's for conduct detrimental to the team. They released him today.
Yeah, so. I haven't seen all the details, but I think of this. I think of Lucic. Like what's happening recently in the NHL with some of these players off the ice, and it's got to be pretty serious if he's stepping away from the team and they're going to buy out his contract. So I haven't read through all the details, so it's hard for me to comment officially on it.
No, we can't, but the facts are, and we'll just stick to them. There's Chicago releasing Corey Perry today, terminating his contract, and the statement that it reads here, in violation of the terms of a player's contract, internal policies intended to promote professional and safe work environments. Boy, this sounds like it's written by an HR lawyer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For that reason, Mr. Perry is, in the event Mr. Perry clears waivers, we intend to terminate his contract effective immediately. Okay, now if you're going to go to the Mr. Perry card, okay, this is bad, but what makes us bad, Dan, is it's the Blackhawks.
Yeah,
this is like the organization that we don't cut any slack after what kind of happened there. We kind of look at them a little sideways. So again, until we get the facts here, it's one of those things, and I can almost guarantee he's going to clear waivers. It's a fact. So they're okay. So
no one's touching him at all.
I mean, it's just like the other story that's sort of kind of related to the Blackhawks. We haven't gotten to this today. No more speculation about Patrick Kane going to the Sabres.
Yeah.
Signs of Detroit.
His buddy DeBrincat's there. That's
why. That's why. Is that it? And Detroit's an upcoming team. I don't know. Or maybe it's just the money.
It could be.
It's funny. It's one of those moves that because the Sabres are still in this young sort of phase here, meaning we're not all kind of jaded. The Bills make a move right now, we're like, the Sabres were like, okay, I get that. Meaning, he signed. It was probably too much money, and you don't need him anyways here. If they did sign him, then you'd be like, wow, yeah, that's a great signing. That's exactly what this team needs. Here's the bottom line when it comes to Patrick Kane not joining Buffalo. There's going to be other veterans at the deadline, which will probably cost you less money. And at the time of the trade deadline, you'll be able to figure out what exactly you need here. So that's my point, is that price might have been too high, and maybe we're still too early in the season right now. And when is Patrick Kane going to be available anyway? So to me, it would have been a nice little story that he comes back home, having played in South Buffalo. I think he played for the Wheatfield Blades and everything else. And that wasn't enough to keep Patrick Kane.
Marty and Duffer were talking about today on their show earlier, and they were saying they don't see how, if you were to add them, who's coming out of the top 6 or top 9 of the Sabres when healthy, when you have Thompson coming back and you have Quinn coming back. Who are you taking out of your lineup to insert Kane into your lineup in your top, at least your top 6? Because your lines are, they're working right now. You have good chemistry with your lines with the Sabres.
It's right. So the timing of this might not line up. There might be injuries later on in the season. So, Yeah, that's the other story to come out of it today. We got Amerks head coach Seth Appert coming up here shortly as news we kind of were waiting for. I don't want to say hope because you don't want anybody injured, but hey, they're going to let Devin Levi just kind of work on his own up there in Buffalo or give him some work. Well, how does I need a refresher. I'm going to put my hand up in the air. Like, how does the loan work? Is it infinite? I think there's only a certain amount of games. Is it a rehab assignment? I don't know what that exactly means, but we'll ask Seth Appert, head coach of the Rochester Americans. Also, too, there is kind of a cool video where you have Seth Appert telling Roseanne and Kulik, hey, you're going up. I mean, that has to be the best feeling ever to deliver that news, right? So, we'll ask the head coach of the Rochester Americans, Seth Appert. That is coming up. We got a sports update as well. My name is Gene Battaglia. This is the Fan Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Sports Update.
Hammocks get a little boost here as Devin Levi coming down to the team on loan. Hammocks next in action Friday and Saturday at Belleville. Talk to head coach Seth Appert coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Buffalo Bills get a little bit of a break here. Their next game on December the 10th. Head coach Sean McDermott on his message to the team.
Listen, we're 6-6, and we know we'd rather have a better record than what we have, but we are who we are. And the encouraging thing is everything, all the goals that we've set for ourselves are still within our reach.
Basketball at the Dome tonight. Syracuse taking on LSU. The Orange at 4-2 on the season. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Save half off to Adventure Call Outfitters. Some whitewater rafting, a great holiday gift idea. This and many more gift ideas at GetMyPerks.com. Gene Battaglia, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
12 seconds to go. Long pass up the left wing side to the far blue line. Feet in front, moving in. Backhander. They score! Ruzayan takes the backhanded pass onto the crossbar. Overtime winner!
Man, chills there as the Hammocks got not one but two OT wins over Laval in the past week. We are welcomed once again by Seth Appert here into the Sports Bar, head coach of the Rochester Americans. Seth, appreciate your time. And if we can kind of start with the breaking news today that Devin Levi is coming down to the team on loan. Seth, thanks for your time. How does the loan work? Is there a certain amount of time? Is it until he gets to where he needs to be? How's that all work?
Yeah, no, it's just an analogy that they use, when they send a player on an entry contract, that doesn't have to clear waivers. So there's no timetable on this. He's going to have the opportunity to come down and just grow his game, just like a lot of our other young prospects are this year and have been the last couple of years. NHL's a demanding league, and it's a demanding schedule. There's not a lot of practice time, and since coming off his injury, it's been harder for him to get as much practice time and game time, and it's a great opportunity for him to come down and get to have more work, whether that's in games or in practice.
All right, so how close is he to being in game here, Seth, would you say?
Yeah, no, I anticipate he'll be in over the weekend at some point. He'll join us. He was not with us today for practice. He will join us tomorrow for practice. We've got two very good goalies in Dustin Sikarsky and Devin Cooley. But I know what my responsibility certainly at any position is our young prospects need ice time, need to develop, and this will be similar.
Yeah, Seth, it's almost like we were anticipating this would have been the year for Levi, but then, he looked good at the end of last year, and he stays up in Buffalo. So this is not the first time you've worked with him, because you were working with him, I would assume, during training camp and over the summer. So tell us, what do you know about Devin Levi and coming down to Rochester? How do you think he'll handle that?
Yeah, he'll handle it great. He's a good young man with a high work ethic and competitiveness. So I've already had a good conversation with him. He's got the right mindset. He wants to come down here and help us win. He wants to come down here, get to work, and be fully immersed in being an Amherst. I think there's a benefit. I have been on the ice with them in development camps and things like that. And then also, there's a lot of guys in that Sabres locker room that have played in Rochester and have played for me. And so I think that gives a sense of comfort to a young player like Devin that he's coming down to a good environment, a winning environment, a winning culture. He'll, the kind of young man he is and the work ethic he has, he'll thrive in that.
Hammocks head coach Seth Appert, our guest. So since we last spoke, Seth, 4 points against a divisional opponent. That's a good thing. 2 overtime wins. You lose a close one to Lehigh Valley, although quite honestly, we should have been that close. Dustin Tokarski keeping you in that game when shots were 49-15. So how would you assess the week that was for your team here?
Yeah, I like that we found a way to win 2 close, hard-fought games. Those were 2 very good hockey games. They were physical. They were competitive.
and we've done a good job of playing well in big moments, late game situations, overtimes, etc. So the disappointing thing on Saturday was that's a game you're set up to lose, right? They only had one game since Wednesday. We had two, 5-hour bus ride in between. They're sitting there, rested after their home game. And, it's one of those on the schedule is going to be a hard one. And we didn't play great, but we did enough to give ourselves a chance. We capitalized on our offensive opportunities. We got great goaltending. And so the disappointing thing is, we took some penalties in the third period that didn't need to be taken, and sometimes those are the penalties you take when you're a little fatigued, a little tired, and you get a little mentally lazy. So there's certainly some lessons to be learned in that one.
Yeah, so before you got down to Lehigh Valley, and the video is out. I think it's fantastic. So, Roseanne, we just played the game winner from Friday night, sending the crowd into a frenzy. And not only he, but Yuri Kulik, they get the call up to Buffalo, and some would say finally, and you get to break that news. Seth, what is that like for you as a coach when you get to tell a young man, hey, you know what, you're going up?
Yeah, that's a cool moment. This one was probably more so for multiple reasons. One, how hard those two have worked over the last 15 months to earn this. And two, the way that it happened. Like, we knew as a coaching staff at the end of the second period. So I had a text from Jason Carmanos. And so now you're in overtime. You're like, well, man, you're thinking to yourself, I hope we win this one because it'd be a lot more fun to tell the guys in the locker room after a win. And then he scores the beautiful game-winning overtime goal with a couple seconds to go. It was a perfect way to do it. And Emily Wade, our director of marketing, is fabulous at her job, and she was there to capture it all. And the rest is history.
Seth, I'm a sucker for those videos. I don't know if maybe this is an obscure reference, but the guy who was with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, his name is David Baker. He's not working there anymore, but he'd show up and he would break the news to guys like Bill Cowher and Jimmy Johnson, these big, tough football guys, and they would break into tears hearing that they're going into the Hall of Fame. It's almost like all the work and finally you're validated. So here's my question, Seth. I'm going to turn this around you. What would get you to break into tears? Like, can I be the one someday to say, Seth, you know what? You are headed to the NHL.
That wouldn't get me to break in tears. Some that break me in tears would have to probably be family related. But it is funny. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine that works in the National Football League, texted me. He said, one day I want you to call me and say you're going to the National. I said, you're already in the National, So, yeah, it was a cool moment. For me, it's a big reason why I coach. I like making groups of men become a team, and I like helping our young men chase their dreams. And so to get to share in that moment and to give them the news, which is a lifetime dream for them, those are really cool moments. And like I said, with any of our guys, it's awesome. Those two guys, they've worked their tails off in the last 14, 15 months to earn this opportunity.
Yeah, and now, mixed emotions for Amherst fans, but, really reality. You hope they stick there. And Seth Appert, our guest here in the Sports Bar. 4 straight games now, you've scored at least one on the power play here. What's been working for you in that regard?
Vinny Prospel does a great job with our group, as Michael Pekka did the year before that, or 2 years before that, and Adam Mayer did our first year. Our power play has been really good. I think we practice it well, and I think Michael Mersch and Brett Murray are undervalued. Not undervalued by us, but by other people. Paterka and Quinn and Roseanne and Kudik and Rusek and Byra, all these flank guys. The flank guys are for lack of a better term, the sexy guys on the power play. They're the guys that have the puck, make the fancy plays. But none of it happens without the net front guys screening the goalie, winning rebound battles, winning puck battles to keep possession alive. And, there was no surprise our power play was sputtering a little bit when Murray and Mersch were out at the same time. And they've been the mainstays as we've had a really good power play over the last 4 years. And so to have, one of them back and then the other one, at least on the way back, is a big boon for the power play.
Seth, I can't believe this. Like, I had to double check. Wait, these are the first games against Belleville this season? It's true. First time you're heading up there Friday and Saturday night, 7 o'clock. So from what you're seeing here, what you remember, what do the Sens like to do here?
Well, they're miserably hard to play against. I mean, that's their organizational philosophy. They're heavy. They're heavy in Ottawa. They're heavy in Belleville. They have a really physically demanding team. They have a big, mean decor. They're getting a few guys back. They've had some young kids up because of injuries, kind of like us, and that happens in American League. But their roster is getting better. I think they got Yarvente and Clevin back recently, so that's going to help them. So anytime you play Belleville here in the last 3 years, you're going to have your hands full. Just incredibly competitive physically, demanding to play against, and a real style that makes it hard on their opponent.
So, Seth, here is today's fun fact, and this blows my mind, right? If you took a straight line, you went across, like for folks who don't know, Belleville is directly across Lake Ontario.
Don't remind me.
71 miles to Belleville if you just had like this imaginary bridge. It's 74 miles to Syracuse. We're actually closer to Belleville than we are Syracuse. That blows my mind, and you must be thinking that every time you got to go up and around the lake there.
I am thinking that. I wish it was an hour and 15-minute drive instead of a 4+ hour drive. But the only good thing is it is one of the prettier border crossings you can ever imagine. The Thousand Islands, just a gorgeous area of our country. So I always enjoy crossing the bridge there before the border. I think that's a beautiful crossing, a beautiful area of the world.
Seth, I'd be remiss if I didn't get your thoughts, because I know you consume a lot of Sabres hockey too. I'm saying that was the game of the year last night. Well, your thoughts on what Buffalo did down at the Garden?
That was awesome. I was able to watch it. We've had a lot of games on the same nights as them lately, so haven't seen them a ton lately. And last time it was free, I was able to watch it. They played fantastic. What a great response after the Devils game. And, you're always rooting even a little extra hard for the guys that we've had here. And J.J. Paterka is playing such good hockey right now. I think he's been just excellent. And he was excellent last night. And Upi has had a lot of really good games in the NHL. That one might have been the best in my mind, not based on how many shots and all that, but his level of presence and calmness. He looked like he had that thing totally in control last night. We're playing one of the best teams in the NHL in a hard building, and the game looked easy. And that was really, really fun to see Upi look that calm in a big game like that.
Yeah, I mean, we are a UPL stand show here where you realize, hey, give him a chance. He's still young, and maybe this turns into something special here. And Don Granato says he's going to get more looks. And just in general, Seth, because you played the position, and it's a position that sometimes it takes a little longer to blossom. Why is that, would you say?
Well, it definitely does. I mean, and we know that as an organization. We've always had a high belief in Upi, and knowing that, with some of the injuries and things he's had, maybe it's 24, 25, 26 for him, when he's hitting the stride. And why I believe it is because it is the loneliest position you can imagine when you're struggling. You're back there all alone. You don't get to come to the bench and talk to your teammates. You can't. If a forward is having a bad game or an off game, he can just decide to dump it in and work hard and be hard to play against. Well, there's none of that for a goalie. You're either good or you're getting scored on, and 10,000 people are yelling, and the light goes on behind you. So it's just a very lonely position, and the more than talent, your belief is earned through a lot of adversity and a lot of hard moments, and coming out on the other side of those hard moments. And Upi's had a lot of that over the last 4 or 5 years with us. And all he does is just keep working. He's a great teammate. He's a really easy guy to root for. So it's fun to see him having the success right now.
Amerks this weekend up in Belleville. You can look ahead here to the schedule. Next home game will be coming up in the month of December. Seth, as Charlotte will be coming back in on Friday the 8th. Seth, appreciate the time. Safe travels up to Belleville, and good luck this weekend.
Thanks for having me on.
Seth Appert, our Rochester Americans head coach, joining us here in the sports bar. Now all of a sudden it's kind of fun. And That's good to kind of clear that up. Like, that's just, he's down here. And for how long? I don't know, but this seems like this is the right move, particularly when was the last time, Dan, that we actually saw Devin Levi up in Buffalo? I'd have to go back and look that up.
I'm not sure offhand. I'd have to think of when the Sabres, because it's been UPL the last, I don't know how many games now, and because he's been playing so well that you've kind of almost forgotten about Levi. So I'd have to go back and...
Yeah, okay, well, we'll look that up real quick. It is... I don't know. We'll figure that out. But the point is, though, that he hasn't played in a long time here. Give him some work here in Rochester. And if Devin Levi is the player we think, and again, sometimes weird things happen in the American Hockey League. Don't look at the goals against per se. Just look at anything that's scored on. Like, where did it come from? How did the play happen? If it's a breakaway, if it's something like, just take a big view picture of how Levi performs this week up in Belleville. And I hope for Amherst fans, we get him on Friday night the 8th. That's a draw.
Yeah.
That is a draw. Like, if he's going to be still with the team here in 2 weeks, and I think he might be if UPL is playing well. I don't think... Let's play this out here. You need to get him some work. Seth Appert said, yeah, we'll get him some... I don't think he's playing both games this week. I would think maybe Friday, maybe Saturday. You got to give him one more, and that's the next game on the schedule. The schedule actually kind of gets a little light here for the Hammocks. The idea that you were playing like 3 games in 4 days. Well, now you have 3 games in 12 days. I mean, it's a little different here. So that's it's a different schedule here for the Hammocks here, and I'm hoping that for Hammock fans, they will be able to see Devin Levi. We got some news today. Which Buffalo Bill, former Buffalo Bill, is nominated for the Hall of Fame today? Do you know the answer now?
I don't, but because I don't believe One Bills Live touched on it today.
All right, I will tell you, and we can kind of debate this. We have time for your calls as well. 866-4326, 866-4FAN. My name is Gene Battaglia, and along with the Dan DeLorean, Danger, under the weather today, and this is the Sports Bar on the Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite... Rochester.
Kind of sounds a little holiday-ish. You in the mood here?
I just picked the music. I wasn't even
thinking
thinking
like the snow today, the lights, everything going on today. It is. It's time for who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football, and it's brought to you by the good folks at Airquip Heating and Air. And it's one team we're just kind of gonna look at. It's kind of some. I can't call it breaking news, but maybe it's something we haven't touched on today, and that is the story out of Indianapolis where Jonathan Taylor is going to need surgery on his thumb. So he's out 2 to 3 weeks, maybe longer. So, yeah, don't drop Jonathan Taylor, but you want to stash him, and chances are Zach Moss is available in the league. And so what you do is, and it's not a jerk move, if the Jonathan Taylor owner is not paying attention tonight, that you're an owner, Jonathan Taylor, you got to go pick up Zach Moss like right now. So Zach Moss, for a team that's in the playoff hunt, he's hot. Jonathan Taylor is not. It's brought to you by Airquip Heating and Air. It's fun and challenging to know when to start a player that's heating up or bench one who's cooling off. It's not fun to be too hot. It's not fun to be too cold in your home business. Make the best lineup call you can and call Airquip today. Mike Danger is under the weather once again. We disclosed it. I did get the text from him Monday morning, and it's the stick with the 2 lines. I'm not talking about pregnancy test. It's the one we all do. No, it's like it's the bad news. Like, this is really bad here. So Danger was, you could tell yesterday if you're listening closely, he was kind of crashing on the show. So today he's just trying to sleep this off. Hopefully we get him back later in the week. So appreciate your patience if you were tuning in today to hear Danger Battaglia. Sorry, you got Battaglia and Drumming today. We do have news out of the NFL today. In addition to that story about Jonathan Taylor, we have the semifinalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So the 25 announced, and no, Steve Tasker is not on this. Who is the one former Buffalo Bill that is actually nominated for the Pro Football Hall of Fame? And I'm going to stay it up front. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. It will be London Fletcher. London Fletcher, who won a Super Bowl with the Rams and then jumped over to Buffalo. And that was the dawn, actually, of the drought era. So maybe that's where my vision is. He was with the Bills from 02 to 06 and then had some good years in Washington. So where I say London Fletcher isn't a Hall of Famer, when you compile the stats and at that position, the middle linebacker position, maybe in the end he would be considered one. I don't think so. But of all these names I'm going to spit at you, that's the only guy that that has any Bills connections. Anquan Bolden was also nominated today, and he was here for a cup of coffee in 2017. And it was a preseason game in Philadelphia. He's like, you know what? I think I'm done here. And he never played another down in the league. So officially nothing at all for him on the resume for the Buffalo Bills. But is Bolden a Hall of Famer? I think so. He's got the championship. A lot of years with Arizona. Other guys that we can kind of, I'll just name them here in alphabetical order. Eric Allen, Eagle and Saint. Jared Allen, remember him from the Chiefs and the Vikings. Willie Anderson, he feels like a Hall of Famer. Bengals and Ravens. Tiki Barber. All right, is Tiki Barber a Hall of Famer? He's an interesting case, right? For a few years, he burned as bright as anybody. That's a tough one. Fletcher, we mentioned. Dwight Freeney. Okay, so former Syracuse player, Colts, Chargers, and then bounced around at the end. Antonio Gates. Okay, that's a Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Eddie George. James Harrison.
I'd say yeah.
Maybe. I don't think that's a surefire. Rodney Harrison.
Oh, yeah.
Devin Hester hasn't gotten in.
Really?
Torrey Holt. Andre Johnson. Listen to all these names.
Yeah.
Robert Mathis, Julius Peppers, Steve Smith Sr., Fred Taylor. Now, he's not a former Buffalo Bill, but here's a fun fact. When the Buffalo Bills traded for Rob Johnson, they traded away their first-round pick. Jacksonville used that first-round pick on who could be future Hall of Fame running back Fred Taylor. Finished up in New England. I barely remember that. Hines Ward, still not in the Hall of Fame.
Really?
Ricky Waters, Niners, Eagles, and Seahawks. Reggie Wayne, Vince Wilfork, Patrick Willis, and Darren Woodson. Darren Woodson was with the Cowboys for a long time, 92 to 03. I think Wilfork. Yeah, you can make a case for half of these players.
There's a lot of good names.
I think the only lock is Antonio Gates. I think that's the first time guy that's on the ballot. I think that he would be somebody I'm like, okay, that feels like somebody that should be in the Hall of Fame. Talking about today, David Tepper in his decision to pick Bryce Young. So David Tepper, Carolina owner today, did a 14-minute news conference. We talked about earlier how his one big critic was trying to ask questions, and it was almost kind of comical, like, I'm not going to call on you. I recognize that you're there, but I'm not going to call on you. I'm not going to call on you. Well, that's not the way you kind of do a press conference. You want to take every question, even the hard ones, and you role play. PR 101, like David Tepper, here are the questions that are going to be coming your direction. And it wasn't like he had any time for role play. David Tepper is the guy that thinks he's smarter than you. He's got that billionaire arrogance. Listening to Bart Winkler last night, I love when Wink is on after our show because I feel like we're smarter when we have him on. I didn't know this story. This tells you kind of what character David Tepper is because, look, I'm not somebody. If you're rich and you're self-made, great. That's awesome. That's what we should all strive to be. Work hard. That's how this country was founded. Okay, now that I've said that, David Tepper did that, but he's got this just jerk quality about him. And here's the story. Apparently, like as he's coming up working for whatever firm, he gets passed over on a promotion. And he is going to stick it back to that manager who didn't give him that promotion. Now, we've all been in that spot. We have. I don't know if I've ever wanted to, like, later in life, exact revenge on somebody and just say, yeah, see, look at me now. So what David Tepper did later in life, this manager, and he made money or whatever, he lived in Malibu, and he had a house that he put up for sale. And David Tepper bought that house. So that's the funny part. Like the old manager actually sold it to Tepper. Now that's the funny part. Like I don't know if he actually the old boss, did he know who he was selling to? I don't know. But what did David Tepper do? He knocked it down. Like we've all done that, like with our kids and everything else. Like, hey, this is the house we used to live in, and wow, look, a lot of good memories. And you just kind of drive by. But I would imagine it would feel a little different if somebody knocked your house down, especially an ex-employee of yours. I'm going to buy your house and I'm going to knock it down, even though you're selling it. Hey, it's mine now, and we completely okay. Great, knock it down. It's like
a waste of money.
No, it's right. But that's how wealthy I am.
Jeez.
I'm going to knock it down. Well, what he ended up doing is on that property, then he built something way more massive.
Oh, okay.
Because just to show how big. But that's like, I just get the feeling that David Tepper is going to be one of these owners that isn't going to change his way. Like, he will hire somebody else and the results won't be there, and whether that's next year or 2 years from now or even 3 years from now, we're going to be back to square one with this guy because, sure, the principles in hedge fund managing or whatever it is that he did to this point, and again, I'm way over my head, they don't apply to football. In sports, there's a randomness, and you have to kind of accept that. And with the randomness in football come losses. And the idea that you fired Frank Reich after 11 games. How can anybody build anything? So if this team next year goes 1-10, what are you going to do then? And you could say, oh, it's because of Bryce Young's development. Maybe Bryce Young ain't it. And that's also part of this, is that Tepper said, I'm drafting this guy, and you guys are going to like it. Now, people would say, who would want to work for this guy? Okay, let me start here. Me. I'd like to work for him. You know why? Because I would get paid, and you would get paid, and everybody would get paid. The idea that Matt Rule walked away with $40 million. Don't feel bad for Frank Reich. He's walking away with $30 million. Like, this guy does not care. And he got let into the NFL Owners Club. And why? Well, because he's got the money, first and foremost. And if he's going to act and behave like this, smart run organizations are looking at Carolina sideways. Like, who is this guy? Like, okay, great. They are not going to win anything because it's Carolina. Like, it's not an organization. How many Carolina fans do you really know? I know one.
0.
One. That's it. Like, and for somebody that is, over the age of 30, you're not, like, Carolina is not a team that it registers. Like, it's not a fan base that has any identity. Charlotte is not a town that has much of an identity. It just kind of sprung up in the South. We all kind of look at it, differently here in the Northeast. So to me, I don't feel sorry for that fan base. I don't feel sorry for that town, and I certainly don't feel sorry for this owner about how. And frankly, I don't feel sorry for Frank Reich because he got paid. And he's going to walk away, and he's a good man. And I think smart people recognize that what happened down in Carolina this year has nothing to do with Frank Reich. And now, so he's going to hire somebody else. And I'm going to just kind of throw this out there. Because, again, let me restate my position very clearly on Sean McDermott. We can have that debate at 866-4326. Now that emotion from another horrible loss by the Buffalo Bills is kind of wearing down. Is Sean McDermott the man to lead the Buffalo Bills into the future? And I will listen to all sides of the argument. I'm going to tell you my opinion on this. Now, right or wrong, he's back next year. He's going to get another thing. And I'm just telling you this just to soften the blow because I get the sense that there is a nation of Bills fans with pitchforks ready to take him down. But say I'm wrong on that. Say Terry Pegula woke up one morning and said, Maybe it's time for a change. I can't even do a Terry Pegula impression because the guy never talks. But what if Terry Pegula woke up one morning and he's looking at his cereal and thought, I got to make this move. What about Sean McDermott in Carolina going back? Sean McDermott, the guy who can build a culture. Sean McDermott, the guy got a .624 winning percentage. Sean McDermott, who has Carolina roots. Knows exactly, and I look at me. I developed Josh Allen. I could develop this quarterback, Mr. Tepper. I don't know. Just kind of throwing that out there, spitballing. What do you think? 866-4326, 866-4FAN. We are headed to happy hour. Mike Danger under the weather today. My name is Gene Battaglia. Dan DeLorean as well. We have time for your calls as happy hour upon us here on the Fan Rochester.
Atlanta as a
BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
News today from the Amherst as Devin Levi, the goaltender, coming down to the team on loan. The team next in action Friday at Belleville and Saturday as well. Head coach Seth Appert joined us earlier today on the show. Said Levi expect him to see some action this weekend. Bills head coach Sean McDermott says the bye comes at a good time for his team.
Get away, get a break. Kind of it's a later bye than any of all of us are used to, and kind of get away from football a little bit, but take care of yourself so when you come back you're ready to roll. And obviously we have some adjustments we need to make.
Bills next in action coming up on Sunday, December 10th at Kansas City. Syracuse basketball tonight as the Orange taking on LSU at the Dome. The Orange at 4-2 on the season. We've got St. John Fisher women's basketball tonight. The Cardinals taking on Ithaca. Nick Coble has your call beginning at 6 o'clock. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Well, it's tough. The NFL is built for parity and for close games.
Mike Danger.
You've got a head coach now who is coaching scared and cowardice. It was a gutless performance by the coach.
It's about us.
Gene Battaglia.
I think people need to get comfortable with the idea that McDermott is back next year.
I don't think McDermott is going anywhere, no matter how this season concludes.
It is the start of the bye week for the Bills.
Monday Night Football.
Good snap, ball put down, kick is up, the kick is perfect. The kick is perfect, and the Bears have gone up 12-10.
For Alex Tuck with a shot, scores! Yes, he did! Alex Tuck!
I think I predicted a 5-1 Sabres win.
Patrick Kane from Detroit.
Seth Appert with the state of the team.
Let's go Amherst.
College football playoff rankings dropped tonight.
LeBron James suffered the most lopsided loss of his career last night, but did pass Kareem for the most minutes played ever.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Happy hour here in the Sports Bar as we welcome your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. It goes back to the conversation we had here. Like, when it comes to Bills losses, it's not good enough. It's like a hurricane. Like, you just can't have, Hurricane Alpha and Beta. Like, that's no fun. Like, you got to name them. It's almost like we have to name losses. Now we have 12 men on the field. We have the win game. What do you name what we had in Philadelphia? Jim writing into me, 59 yards. Okay, that was a big play. Like, honestly, I'm looking, it's like, he ain't making this. Not as good. He made it. Okay, great. We're going to overtime here. If you have a name, we still want something to be catchy on that. Today was kind of the last little bit of Bills news before everybody had it on down. Yesterday, Sean McDermott spoke, and even though he's not the coordinator, Eric Washington speaks to the media, and offensive coordinator Joe Brady spoke. And then when you hear more Joe Brady, he sounds a lot more polished than Ken Dorsey ever did. And I don't need a coach to give great quotes or whatever, but I want you to listen to this. This is the topic we've been talking about here. Well, number one was, 20 seconds there. Why aren't you taking a shot? But then the second thing that kind of bothered you about that game, how is it in week 12 that your quarterback and your finger quote number 2 receiver aren't on the same page? When the cover 0 blitz is happening, oh boy, you should know the hot read. You should know which direction the ball is going in. Was it Allen? Was it Davis? And we've had people, both sides, saying, oh, whose fault was it? Whose fault was it? Well, let's ask Joe Brady what happened on that play.
At the end of the day, if there is a miscommunication, and if it falls on me, right, as offensive coordinator, there's nothing easy about it from a Josh Allen standpoint of it's a blitz 0 situation, which you knew you kind of get where there's a lot of guys coming at you. You're going to have to drift and make a decision on the fly. And so we didn't connect on it. And Gabe's not at fault. Josh isn't at fault. As offensive coordinator, I got to point the thumb at myself. And so what can I do to put him in a better position to have success next time that we get that opportunity, that we can have a walk-off in there? So that's basically what it comes down to right now. It's just internal conversations about us just figuring that out. But, more so me just pointing the thumb at myself and making sure that whatever the communication is, that we're all on the same page next time.
That's leadership right there, because I'm sure somebody's to blame here. What good would that do for that player? Okay, or anything? It didn't work. We kind of move on. but it better not happen again. And that's the conversation from behind closed doors here. Now, I said this earlier. Let's match that up against Sean McDermott when asked about what happened at 13 seconds. And just kind of a refresher, and not to pick off the wound here, a scab, whatever. But it was the decision not to squib kick. It was the decision to play prevent, even though the Chiefs had their timeouts, and that was there was a lot of things with the 13 seconds. So what the heck happened there? Now you just heard the new 30-year-old offensive coordinator say, that's my fault. Sorry. This was the quote from Sean McDermott. And it wasn't it was about, 2-3 days after that loss. Quote, we can just execute better, and that starts with me and goes all the way down. I don't want to get into specifics right now. I'm really proud of the guys and their effort. Obviously, the Chiefs made a couple plays down the stretch, so I'll just leave it at that right now. All right, so maybe I misremembered one thing, but he does kind of mix in a starts with me. No, that's the difference. It starts with you. It is you. It is you. And that infuriated me after. Not that it would have changed the outcome of that game, but it kind of set the table for other things. Starts with me. No S. Of course it starts with you. All he had to say was, I am the head coach of this team, and we were not prepared, and that is my problem. We just need to execute better. No kidding. I don't want to get into specifics right now. It goes all the way down. Okay, so what you're saying is you're kind of throwing one of the guys under the bus. I'm just putting the two next to one another. That Joe Brady, again, it's only 2 games in here, but there's something there that we were joined earlier today by Matt Perino. By the way, we're going to replay the Matt Perino conversation with you here in a little bit. We joined today earlier, and the idea that Joe Brady still has the interim tag, and nobody knows. Matt doesn't know. What does that mean for Joe Brady? Because the rule in the NFL is this, and you can't be an indentured servant. If you are like a line coach and somebody wants to say, hey, you're an offensive coordinator, you're going to get permission to talk to other teams. So where's the line when it comes to hey, you're not the offensive coordinator, you're the interim offensive coordinator? I don't think Joe Brady would bolt Buffalo. But if the Buffalo Bills did not remove the tag, I would think that there would be other teams that would at least love to interview Joe Brady and have him come in. It's been a different offense the last 2 weeks. And there's another frustrating thing about this season. And this season may just go down as the most frustrating season ever, Buffalo Bills football. And the idea that it took a little while here, but the identity of the offense is back. And now while the identity of the offense is back, other things are kind of falling apart here. Matt Perino kind of joined us earlier today, and he doesn't rule it out. It's not, we're not the pom-pom show here, but at 6-6, the wild card is still in play, folks, because you look at Indianapolis, and now Jonathan Taylor's out 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, Houston's still a young team. Are they really going to close it? I mean, there is going to be a spot. The fear that Matt brought up is this. What if it's Denver? What if it comes down to the Bills and the Broncos, same record, and the tiebreaker goes to the team that won the head-to-head? I don't know at that point. Just another fun fact here I want to point out for everybody on the Bills here and McDermott. And Sean McDermott's winning percentage in Buffalo is .624. He didn't have Josh Allen all these years. He had Tyrod. And then he had rookie Josh Allen, who, quite honestly, wasn't that good. Josh Allen, rookie year, kind of lost. Showed you just enough there in the tail end to say, okay, there's something. And year 3, you still didn't get any weapons. It wasn't until year 2, rather. Year 3 was when things kind of kicked into the gear. 624 is good. Now, there's an obvious skew to this what I'm going to tell you here, but 624, coaches with worse winning percentages. Bill Parcells, 56.9. Joe Gibbs, 621. Bill Cowher, 623. Jim Harbaugh, 614. Doug Peterson, 562. Of course, I'm telling you all these numbers, and all those men have Super Bowl championships, or at least been to a Super Bowl where, Sean McDermott has yet to get there as a head coach. So if the Bills decided to move on from Sean McDermott, just brace yourself. There will be a lot of finger waving from the national media saying, what are you doing? You had one bad year and you're taking a different direction. Well, did they say that when Tony Dungy got let go in Tampa? Tony Dungy was 54-42 with the Buccaneers. You'd think he was better, but when he took over the Buccaneers, they were a laughingstock. And he built them into a program. Respectable. And he couldn't get over the top. But then he got snatched up right away and eventually won a Super Bowl with the Colts. So, again, I'm going to stick to my guns here. McDermott is back, and I'm not saying that to anger you. I'm just saying that to brace you because I get the sense that you as a Bills fan right now are pretty upset because you look at some simple management things that aren't being done with this team. And it's easy to identify for us sitting here. But I think he's going to have some goodwill in the bank here to get one more year, at least. We got shots coming up. We're going to take a little break here early. That's because I want to get to Matt Perino a little bit early. Mike Danger is out today. He is still under the weather with COVID. In fact, he's worse today than he was yesterday. So it's just one of those, one of those reminders that I guess it still is out there. Nick Hobel will have the call of St. John Fisher basketball. Danny, I got to cut out here earlier because I've got 6 o'clock ceremony. My son Kyle is going into I didn't know they had this. They have the National Honor Society when you're in high school. They have the National Technical Honor Society, which is for when his son goes to WMOCO. So he wants to be a carpenter, and I need to do the dad thing, and obviously very proud of that. So we'll have some stories here from the world of sports, including Syracuse basketball. Yeah, they're in action tonight. We'll set you up for the NBA as well, and the story about Mike McDaniel stealing his future wife from a player. And this story was told by Al Michaels. Is it true? McDaniel was asked about it. We'll tell you his response. It's coming up. My name is Gene Battaglia. Danger Out today. The Dandalorian at the controls here on the Fan Rochester.
I'm William Mattar. As cold weather...
update.
Devin Levi has come down to the Rochester Americans on loan. Amerks next in action Friday at Belleville. Head coach Seth Appert joined us earlier today in the sports bar, and he said that Levi will see action this weekend. Again, the Amerks Friday and Saturday up in Ontario. Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott on his message to the team.
Listen, we're 6-6, and we know we'd rather have a better record than what we have, but we are who we are. And the encouraging thing is everything, all the goals that we set for ourselves are still within our reach.
Bills next in action December the 10th in Kansas City. Syracuse LSU tonight at the Dome in basketball. The Orange 4-2 on the season. You got St. John Fisher women's basketball. Melissa Kaburka's team taking on Ithaca. Nick Coble has the call beginning at 6 o'clock. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The sports leader, 95.7 FM, and streaming online at thefanrochester.com and the Odyssey app. This is The Fan, Rochester.
Time for shots here in the sports bar. No last call today. We'll take your calls tomorrow. We're going to replay the conversation with Matt Perino because, first of all, it was really good. Matt kind of filling in on a lot of things, and I think you'll be a smarter Bills fan for coming up with that. As again, we'll have St. John Fisher basketball coming up at 6 o'clock tonight. That might have been the best game the Buffalo Sabres have played all season. Going on the road, beating the team with the best record in the NHL, 4-1. The Sabres beating the Rangers at MSG. New York 13-1-1 in their last 15 games. They haven't lost a home game since October 19th. Entering their game in their last 14 against the Rangers, the Sabres are actually 0-11-3. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, 25 saves, a lot of them good there. 5-1 the win. Alex Tuck had 2 goals, scoring J.J. Peterka, Kyle Pozo, Casey Middlestat with the empty netter. It's an 8 o'clock start Thursday as Buffalo will be playing the Mouth Breathers, as Danger calls them in St. Louis. See, Danger? If you're listening, that was for you, buddy. Syracuse basketball, 4-2 on the season. But, Dan, let's examine who they've beaten so far. New Hampshire, Canisius, Colgate. My favorite, Chaminade. Losses to Tennessee and Gonzaga tonight. Well, it is a worthy opponent coming to the Dome. LSU. It's a made-for-TV thing. The SEC ACC Challenge. Judah Mintz leading Syracuse with 18 points per game so far. However, it's an orange team that is absolutely freaking dreadful from beyond the arc. They rank 333rd in Division I in three-point shooting. Yeah, that's going to change. Syracuse has a 7 o'clock tip tonight on ESPN2. Speaking of the Orange, ESPN is reporting that the school is targeting Georgia football assistant coach Fran Brown to replace Dino Babers. Now, who is Fran Brown? Glad you asked. He is he's coaching the defensive backs currently for Georgia. He's 41. And he's yet to become a head coach. The New Jersey native, though, is considered to be a good recruiter. And if you're Syracuse and you're just trying to be strategic, you can't go recruiting necessarily. But I think you can draw a lot from that area down there. Your Don Bosco preps and those sort of places there. So can you win the recruiting battle in our corner of the world? Maybe that's a good place to start there. I don't mind that target at all. LeBron James set the all-time minutes played mark last night, and LeBron detractors can chuckle because it happened on the worst loss of his career by margin, 138-94 at Philadelphia. The previous owner of the mark was Kareem. LeBron says the record doesn't mean that much to me. Of course it's not. It doesn't. You should be not even talking about it after a loss like that. There are 8 games in the NBA tonight. The Celtics hosting Chicago. The Knicks are home against Charlotte. Doubleheader on TNT as the Bucks and Heat at 7:30, followed by the Warriors and the Kings at 10. Finally, Al Michaels told a good story during the Jets-Dolphins broadcast on Friday, and I didn't stick with it. I was doing other things. That current Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel told one of his players at the time, stop dancing with this girl. If you want to be on the team this year, stop dancing. So the player, listening to his coach, stops. And McDaniel starts dancing with her. 4 years later, McDaniel marries the woman. Katie is her name. So if Al Michaels is telling the story on Prime, the coach is going to be asked about it. Is that really true? That McDaniel I'm not going to use a crass word, but he blocks. Let's just put it that way. He blocked one of his own players. When asked about it, the Dolphins head coach said the skeleton of the story is true, but it was more of a joke, I suppose, which would mean, all right, maybe he was already dating Katie at that point, and like I don't know, but that's kind of a funny story there, Dan DeLorean. That is Shots in Sport. Tomorrow on the show, PJ Glasser will be joining us here as we've got some championship football in college coming up this weekend. We also have some NFL picks here as we look ahead to Week 13. We will also be talking some Rochester Nighthawks lacrosse. Going to be a little the Nighthawks season will be beginning, and I think the expectations are a little high. Team making the postseason, but didn't make it out of round one. We'll be talking some Nighthawk lacrosse tomorrow on the show. We talked earlier today to Matt Perino, the Syracuse Post-Standard. As coming up at 6 o'clock tonight, Nick Coble will have some St. John Fisher basketball, the woman taking on Ithaca. So what we're going to do here is we will replay the conversation today with Matt Perino. That'll be coming on the other side here. And then Nick will take it away at 6 o'clock for some